Um, Hi, my name is Andre. My claim will be that nuclear energy is a necessary step towards a fully renewable grid, a grid that's supplied by fully renewable energies. Even the U.S. Department of Energy states that, quote, nuclear power is a resource capable of making major contributions in meeting our nation's energy supply, environmental, and energy security needs. My three main points will be that, first of all, nuclear energy is less deadly or dangerous than, say, coal or gas-fired power plants. Second, that nuclear energy is significantly better for the environment. And finally, that the electrical grid is currently unprepared for being fully renewable. A few definitions before I go into the body of my argument would be that, CA ISO, which is the California Independent System Operator, which is the third-party entity that operates and maintains California's power grid. Also, curtailment, which is a reduction in the production of energies from renewable resources. So, like flipping a switch on, say, a wind turbine to off. So first of all, nuclear energy is less deadly than coal. Just as an example, nuclear energy prevents deaths by lowering our dependency on coal. A study published by NASA, it was stated that it had been calculated that, quote, the global nuclear power, as in all the nuclear power that we've generated since we started using it, has prevented an average of 1.84 million deaths related to air pollution. And in addition to cutting out 64 gigatons of CO2 equivalent. So gigatons would be billions of tons. That leads into my second point, which is nuclear energy is better for the environment. It releases significantly yet less CO2 per unit of energy generated. According to both the U.S. Energy Information Administration and the World Nuclear Association, nuclear energy produces between 3 and 10% of the CO2 per gigawatt hour generated. Finally, the grid is unprepared to be fully renewable. Renewables don't have a constant output, so solar only works during the day. It doesn't work, it works significantly less efficiently if it's cloudy or if there's trees or obstacles in the way. Same with wind. According to CA ISO, solar power peaks when net load on the grid is lowest, which is a problem. Because the power grid was not built for variable outputs, currently the grid matches demand as it's produced. So you flip on a switch, a generator somewhere really far away works just that much harder. So because renewables aren't consistent, like say a coal burning generator, the grid has to work extra hard for, say, if it's a cloud drifts over the sun in one solar field, or it's slightly less windy for a few minutes in a big wind farm. According to a study conducted at Stanford University, at times in the future, the net load could drop well below 15,000 megawatts during our peak generation for solar, so midday. And this represents a overgeneration risk in which the system's power demand is lower than the minimum power production possible. This means that the energy that solar is generating plus the minimum level for coal-fired power plants is higher. Both those two figures are higher than demand, which can damage the generators. And quote, during these overgeneration conditions, the excess power supply could potentially damage generators and motors connected to the electrical grid, which means that CA ISO has to curtail the renewable energy, which means that that energy or any possible energy is just wasted. There's even been times 2 years ago that California actually had to not sell its extra energy, but pay Nevada in order to take extra energy that would have overloaded the California electrical grid. So in short, nuclear energy is a necessary step towards a fully renewable grid. Not only is it less deadly and better for the environment, but currently our grid is not prepared to be fully renewable. Thank you.
All right, Andre. Well, you make the argument that it's a necessary step. I assume the necessity stems from the fact that the other energy resources are either too problematic for us or not ready for us, which is kind of suggesting that this fits in the middle. It is at least a stopgap. When you do talk about the other ones not being safe for us or appropriate for us to use, there's a little bit of discussion about what the problems are with coal-fired plants and maybe some pollution issues, although you don't really get very deep into that and talk about what's going on there. You do have one piece of information that suggests that nuclear power has saved slightly over 8 million lives from pollution in the last 50 plus years that it's been utilized. That's a interesting and a broad generalization. I think you could use a little bit more information to substantiate the notion that it's the negative forms of pollution that are created by using other fossil fuels that create this particular problem. You kind of take that as a given, and I understand that. I think for the most part people will get the point that you're making there, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't make the argument a little bit more effective. When you define what the CAISO is, that's okay, except that it really doesn't come up until one point later in the speech, and at that point it's really just used to identify a source more than anything else, that this is the organization that is saying this. So I don't know why it needs a separate definition. You could probably just define it when you're using that particular piece of information. There's a relatively solid preview of what the supporting structure is going to be. The controversy on the issues, I think the second and the third points need to be a little bit more developed. The third point especially, I think, is where the clearest controversy is, because people are arguing all the time that we need to move to renewables, and this is one of the few times that I've had somebody explain why it's problematic to use renewables with the power system that we currently have. Your explanations on that third point are okay, but they are very dependent on hypotheticals, and I suspect that you do have one good example that you've mentioned at the end where California had to pay Nevada to take their energy off their hands, and I'm just thinking, man, that's a good deal. How do I sign up for that? You know, give me some money and I'll take your energy. I don't know what I'll do with it. Plug it into the ground or something. I can waste the air conditioning or something. I'm not sure what's going on there. But the example there is a good one. I do think that you want to cite it a little bit more. You know, there's probably not much dispute about you know, the negative effects of pollution, and that less CO2 would be good. Those things I think people would generally agree to. The question of how efficient or effective the alternatives could be given the system that we have, I think that's, like I said, where most of the controversy ends up lying. All right, thank you.